So for students who need a little bit of a hand making 2D plans, I'm going to try making 2D plans for the picture frame project. We've already gone ahead and we've made a 3D version of the model in a previous video, and so we'll keep on conforming to these specifications. It's going to kind of follow the same sort of thing, but the end results should look something like this. The idea that the front of the picture frame will be this view here. The top of the frame would look like this, and this is a cutaway. It's not a traditional type of view from the top. The traditional right-hand view will look like this, and the isometric's already been taken from the 3D model and put into that place. But you'll notice that this affords us a little bit more detail as to the sizes of what we're dealing with. And this is a blown-up version that I've actually put in particular dimensions to. But starting from scratch, let's take a look and see how it would look right from the get-go and how we'd build it. Everything revolves around the size of the picture that you want to put into it, which is going to be a 5 by 7. So I'm making a 5 by 7 rectangle and then zooming in on it. I'm going to get rid of things like perspective because it just gets in the way. And having gotten that part, the construction of this, we're going to use the offset tool because we want to have an inset on the picture. That is, we want the frame to overlap the picture by 1/4 inch, 0.25, so that it holds the picture glass and backing board in place. And then from that inset, the thickness of the frame, each side and top and bottom, is going to be 1.75, 1 3/4 inches from that inside. So I'll put in 1.75. The offset tool does all the work for us so far. And if you want, you can get rid of that thing in the middle because that's all we need. You can confirm this. The whole point of doing this is that you can confirm the dimensions and put these into the plan. So for instance, yeah, that edge there is going to be 1 3/4 inch. The outside edge is going to be 10 inches tall, and it should be 8 inches across. And if you wanted to measure the inside here, the inside of this window is less than the width of the picture. It's only 4.5, and less than the height of the picture, so that that inset will actually hold things in place. And realistically, we're not going to have those edges showing through. The edges of the picture will actually be behind the frame, so it looks a lot more like this. Now there's more that we can do to this. If we are going to try to create bevels and the like to make it look interesting, we can put those bevels on again with the offset tool. Might take this and say, okay, I would like to have something about 1/2 inch from the outside edge there, maybe a full inch from there, and this will create a bevel around that outside edge sort of thing. And that should make things look nice. I'm going to leave it something like that and start working on the top edge. But before I do, I think I'm going to move this whole thing so it's inside the origin. I'm going to move the whole construction. I like to put the page margins around the outside and center it right around that origin so things are nice and neat. So now the top edge. Top edge is going to be extended from that side. We know that the top edge is 8 inches, and the thickness of the wood should be 3/4 inch. So I'm putting in an 8, 0.75. So that gives us the accurate scale dimensions of the top. I'll do the same thing from the side while I'm at it. And we know it's going to be 0.75 across, 0.75, 10 to give us that rectangle. Okay, and just drawing this by hand, it's just 2D drawing, nice and easy. Now looking at the top edge, we're going to start making this a little bit more realistic. And if we do this cutaway thing, we know that this is the entire top edge viewed from the top, but we want to see sort of a cross section, so it's showing us the side frame there and there. And we know that side's width is 1 3/4, so I'll put in 1.75 for a guideline. That tape measure puts the guidelines in real easily if you click from a line, not from the midpoint, but from a line. 1.75. And then you can just draw a line and get rid of the stuff in the middle, so that you can see those are the two sides, as if you cut away the top and you could just see the sides in their profile. And this is going to be useful because we can see what that profile is going to start looking like. For instance, the inset in the back, this would be the back of the frame viewed from the top. This would be the front of the frame, the part that you'll look at. And we knew that we inset that thing 1/4 inch. So you know what, put a couple more guidelines into this. I know that 1/4 inch, 0.25, I'm going to have that rabbet cut to get rid of that. And I know I wanted to put this 1/2 inch, 0.5. So there is my inset in the back of the frame, something like that. Now next, if we wanted to put the Roman ogee on the other edge, on the front and on the outside edge, we want to give it that nice ornate look. We can go back to the 3D model and see what that looks like here. Oh yeah, there it is. Is that a nice Roman ogee that we have going on over there? Well, we can put that in and simulate it. It's again very useful to put the guidelines in place first. So I'm going to put a guideline at 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch, and I think I need to do the same thing from the back here. About 1/4 inch, and I've got another one there that's still left over. A Roman ogee, you don't have to do a Roman ogee. You could do a cove, or you could do a 1/2 inch round. There's all sorts of different things that you could do here. I'll do the Roman ogee because it's the most complex, but it's not all that hard to figure out if you use the curve tool. Roman ogee is basically a curve that's kind of tangent to that corner, and then another one that sort of bevels out like this. And when you erase it, that describes the Roman ogee from what it looks like from a cross section from the top. The last thing we were doing to make things a little more interesting is about 1 inch from the outside. Let's see, looking at this thing, I guess we went 1/2 inch, and then we went another, maybe it was another 1/2 inch from there. So I'm going to drag one more guideline from about here. So there's my 3/4 inches away. I wanted to make a 1/2 inch dado that's going to give the thing that little ornate trench right about there. So I think I can do that pretty easily. I'll drag another 1/2 inch there. Nice and precise. And I'll start, let's see, how is this going again? Yeah, there's, oh, it should be starting there and going over one more. We'll erase all these guidelines later because they just get really messy. But the point is I'm using very, very easy measurements. It's snapping to a depth of, I think, 1/8 of an inch, which is okay. But that's the profile that will give us this result. Nice big, let's see, this would be a 1/2 inch there, a 1/2 inch there, and a 1/2 inch before you're in the middle of the Roman ogee. So that's a fine design. That'll do the job. And I'm going to get rid of all of these guidelines because I sure don't want them anymore. And then to make life really easy, we got to duplicate it and mirror it over here. We don't have to work that hard though. If I take this whole thing and a right mouse click and group it, I could then just duplicate that. I'll copy and paste it and put it over here. In fact, I could put it right on top like this, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I want to mirror it and put it in place. To mirror it, I'll use the scale tool, and I'll grab any of those side handles and just flip it until it snaps to a perfect mirror. And then I want to put this piece, I'll use the move tool. I'll grab that corner there and have it align with that corner there, so you can see it's exactly the same size. And then I know I don't need that square in the background, so I'll just erase it. Perfect. Everything's exactly the way we want it. And if you really want to describe what this cutaway should be looking like, let's put in the glass piece that we have as well. The glass piece was going to be, we just figured this out, it's going to be 5 by 7, so it's 5 inches wide by 1/8 of an inch thick. That's the dimensions of the glass. And that also is the dimensions of the backing board. So I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to group it just to make life simple, and then I'm going to move it into place. I'll grab that corner and have it align perfectly with, I've got to zoom way in there to get it, that corner. So that's the way the glass will seat into the frame from the back. And if we want to make one more, let's copy and paste that and have another one going right there. That would represent the backing board. And realistically, it's not going to be, oops, undo that. Realistically, it's not going to be that close to it. There's going to be a little photo that's sandwiched in between, and you can leave a little gap there. But the idea is we also want to have enough room here once the photo's in place that we can put those glazing points in place. Those are little spikes that'll hold the whole thing in place and keep it intact. So there's our 3 views. Now you can do the same thing here for this business. I'm not going to redo it. It's just following the same business of making a Roman ogee, but you don't have to do the cutaway. So the thing in this case will look much more like that without the cutaway, and it'll simply have that straight edge going there because there is an edge that's going to show up. And certainly you can do that if you want to really quickly. We know that that edge is going to be about 1/4 of an inch away from the back, like that. And so I'll just draw a straight line. Once again, I'm not going to put the Roman ogee in because I don't want this video to get too long. So putting the dimensions in, good idea. Let's go ahead and put the frame around the outside of it too. I'm going to copy that from our template, and that's available in the wiki. And I'll paste it in here somewhere. I'm going to paste it roughly in place like this. It's grouped so it won't interfere with any other objects. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll try to center it. I like centering it right at that origin. It's not quite big enough in this case because we have a very large model we're making, so I'll scale it up in size. Grabbing a corner, And if you hold Alt and Control at the same time, it actually expands from its center. So I'll make it about that big and move it again. And then you may want to move some of these elements and make them look a little prettier, as long as you move them in perfect directions here. Hit the move. I'm going to move this only along this axis so it's sort of centered in the frame. It looks pretty. Oops, you know what? I should have grabbed the other one at the same time. Let's grab that and that. Let's get this. Hold the Shift key down and I'll grab both those elements. Now I'll hit the move and I'll try to center it roughly where it belongs. Likewise, this thing I'll hit the move button and move it straight up so it's sort of centered in its quadrant. And I could do the same thing here with this, moving it only along the red axis in this case. Putting the picture up in that top corner, I've already prepared an ISO JPEG, so I'll hit import, see if I can find it. There it is. Using it as an image is important, and I'll say, and I also had to select that this was a JPEG, and when I hit open it gives me that thing, and I'll click in the center and drag out, not all the way to the side because it's a little bit too big. I'll click it about there and that gets that in place. I've got to change the last name, first name, and all that sort of stuff. There's lots more that you can do to this, but this gets you started, and it takes about that long if you do it freehand. More detail would be useful. And by the way, a smart thing to do too is resize these dimensions. They're way too big. So go to Window, go to Model Info, choose your dimensions, select all the dimensions that are available. By the way, if there's any that are inside of groups, they won't be affected by this, so you have to break apart or explode anything that's already grouped. This one wasn't. And go into your fonts. I would suggest taking the font down to size 8. I like to change the color of the dimensions as well so they're a little different from the black lines. Okay, and update the selected dimensions, and then it's a little bit easier to see those things. But the whole idea is that this is a nice, neat set of plans that have all the dimensions that you're going to need, and I'm going to show you what you need to do when you get into the shops to manufacture it. Hope that helped.